Next, NASA says its Voyager1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe, is sending usable information to Earth again.
For over 4 decades, Voyager 1 has drifted silently through the great cosmic ocean. Alone, ancient, and still transmitting. Designed to last just 5 years, it has survived radiation, time, and distance no machine was ever built to endure. But recently, something happened. In the stillness of interstellar space, Voyager 1 sent back a signal. Not just data. Not just cosmic dust. A pattern. A disruption. A message. And the message wasn't only strange, it was impossible. Systems that should have failed years ago came back online. Data routed through computers declared dead decades earlier. And behind it all, a hidden transmission that suggests the spacecraft didn't just drift, it was touched, manipulated, or worse, reprogrammed. Today we dive into that signal, what NASA found, what they tried to hide, and what this unimaginable event could mean for the future of humanity. History. Launched in 1977, Voyager 1 was humanity's first emissary to the outer planets and eventually to the stars. After completing its mission to observe Jupiter and Saturn, it continued onward, propelled by gravitational slingshots and driven by the unstoppable curiosity of the human spirit. By 2013, it became the first object to enter interstellar space. It has long since left the Sun's magnetic shield behind, floating in a realm untouched by any human device before. But Voyager was never meant to go this far. Every system on board was designed with a shelf life, and yet it keeps going. Piece by piece, engineers have shut down heaters and non-essential instruments to preserve power. Still, it survives. And then, out of nowhere, it began behaving like it had awakened. In mid-May, NASA engineers monitoring Voyager 1 noticed something strange. The spacecraft's Attitude Articulation and Control System, or AACS, the system that keeps its antenna aimed at Earth, began sending garbled data. Not telemetry. Not error codes. Gibberish. But somehow, the antenna remained perfectly aligned. The signal strength was strong, clear, precise. It was like watching someone speak fluent English while claiming they had forgotten the language. NASA called it electronic aphasia. And that wasn't the strangest part. The corrupted data was being routed through a computer that had been non-operational for decades. A system that was shut down and declared unusable, suddenly active. How? Why? NASA's official explanation is that it was probably due to a wrong command from another computer. But off the record, insiders were terrified. Because systems don't just wake themselves up. Not in deep space. Not after 45 years. The helipause. At the edge of our solar system lies the heliopause, a turbulent boundary where solar winds crash into the interstellar medium. For years, scientists believed this border was stable, even static. But Voyager's recent data shattered that idea. The heliopause is moving, shifting its shape rapidly and unexpectedly. Ripples. Oblique angles. Asymmetries. NASA's IBEX satellite confirmed these changes. But only Voyager provided in situ data. What they found contradicted existing models. Waves of energy behaving like reflections. Sections of the boundary folding in on themselves. Scientists speculated about external magnetic fields or unknown interstellar forces. But behind closed doors, some asked a darker question. Is something manipulating the boundary, creating a window or a doorway? Because these distortions seem to intensify around the time of Voyager's strange signal. A coincidence or contact? A coincidence or contact? When engineers discovered that the AACS system was routing data through a long-defunct computer, they were stunned. Systems don't make decisions, they follow instructions. And this dead computer had no power, no function, and no reason to be involved. Yet it had rerouted critical operations through itself, corrupting every outgoing packet of data. The fix? NASA simply told the AACS to switch back to the correct system. And it worked. But the big question remained, why did it switch at all? Some suggested a cosmic ray could have flipped a bit in Voyager's memory. Others weren't so sure. The odds of that happening, and producing such a specific behavior, were astronomically small. One theory quietly gaining traction inside NASA, that the transmission wasn't a malfunction, it was a response. A coded signal sent back to Earth as Voyager passed through a region of space that may not be empty after all. One that might have noticed, and replied. A strange frequency. As engineers sifted through the anomalous transmission logs, something else surfaced. Buried beneath the noise, almost imperceptible, was a frequency no one had noticed before. It wasn't random interference. It pulsed, with rhythm. With intent. This wasn't the frequency Voyager was supposed to be using. And it wasn't a reflection or a feedback loop. It was independent, originating from somewhere close to the spacecraft, but not from Voyager itself. Spectral analysis revealed something even stranger. It fell between the known ranges of radio communication and plasma resonance. Not quite natural. Not quite artificial. Something in between. NASA couldn't triangulate the source. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from any of the spacecraft's known systems. But it moved with Voyager. It echoed its velocity. It fluctuated as Voyager passed through denser patches of interstellar plasma, as if it was riding along. What emits a frequency without a source? What follows a spacecraft without a body? Whatever it was, it seemed tethered to Voyager, as if the transmission had awoken something dormant. Something that now refuses to let go. The interstellar medium. After the strange frequency was detected, NASA tasked a team with mapping the surrounding plasma field. What they found left everyone speechless. The interstellar medium, the space between stars, was responding to Voyager's presence in a way that couldn't be explained by simple physics. Density shifts. Micro bursts of heat. And localized turbulence were clustering around the spacecraft. It was as if the void itself was watching, responding, mirroring. One researcher described it as waking up the sea. Voyager was a pebble dropped in still water, and the ripples were echoing back. There were even moments where Voyager's sensors picked up reflected signals, but with slight delays. As though something was bouncing the data back at them. Just off the expected return time. Too short to come from Earth. Too long to come from a simple internal loop. It was a haunting realization. The environment Voyager is in may not be passive. It might be interactive. And if space can listen, it might also remember. The shift. What no one expected was the slight shift in Voyager's path. Minuscule, yes, but measurable. It wasn't following its projected course through interstellar space anymore. The change was subtle at first, barely noticeable over weeks. But the trajectory was curving. No nearby star. No gravity well. No asteroid belt. Yet something was pulling Voyager. Not violently, but like a hand placed on its shoulder. Nudging. NASA ruled out hardware malfunction. Thrusters were offline. Attitude controls weren't firing. Radiation pressure, insufficient. This wasn't random. It was directional. It was calculated. Like a compass needle slowly aligning with a magnetic field you didn't know existed. And what direction was Voyager drifting toward? That's the part no one wants to talk about. Because it's not moving outward anymore. It's curving, slightly inward. As if whatever lies beyond the edge is beginning to pull everything back toward it. The final twist. And then came the final twist, not in space, but here on Earth. One of the senior engineers working on the Voyager project experienced a health crisis. While hospitalized, he reportedly became obsessed with a string of numbers Voyager had transmitted. Not sensor data. Not telemetry. Just numbers. He claimed they weren't random. He said they were coordinates. Other members of the team dismissed it as stress-induced delusion until they ran the numbers. And what they found shook even the skeptics. The coordinates pointed to a patch of sky that hadn't been studied in detail before. An unusually dark region in the radio spectrum. It didn't emit. It didn't reflect. It simply absorbed everything. Voyager had passed near that sector over 2 years ago. No anomalies were flagged at the time. But now, going back over the archival data, they found it. Just a single spike. One flash. One pulse. A fraction of a second, and then silence. Was it a beacon? A warning? Or simply the first blink from something that has now opened its eyes? Voyager 1 was never supposed to survive this long. And it certainly wasn't supposed to speak again, not like this. But across the frozen dark, it has whispered something back to us. Not just data. Not just static. Something deeper. A pattern that defies randomness. A shift that defies physics. A pull that defies understanding. And in the middle of it all, humanity's oldest messenger, now delivering a warning wrapped in code, distortion, and awe. We thought the void was indifferent. But what if it wasn't? What if space isn't silent at all, but simply patient? Maybe the unimaginable was never what Voyager discovered, but what it woke up. What it reached. And now, the question isn't whether we're alone. The question is, what happens when something answers back?